It's Mike Titino with the Safety First Home Inspection Show.
So thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Love being here. I love chopping it up with you.
Catherine, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
I'm proud of you, man. Good for you. I like it.
So this is the Safety First Home Inspections podcast, episode number 4. I have a special guest with me, Braun, not your average lender. Thank you so much for coming on my show. Sounds funny even saying that, coming on my show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I want to start with the name, Not Your Average Lender. Where did the name come from?
Good question. I always get this question. So it really, and a lot of people just see Not Your Average Lender and they think it's a lot deeper than a lot of people think. So there's a whole story behind it. So I was at a point in my life when I was actually starting in the mortgage industry where personally, emotionally, spiritually, I was going through a lot of stuff. And I came to a breaking point where I was like, you know what? I don't want an average life, like just in general. So average relationships, average finances, average in shape, physical condition, even though I'm still pretty average in that sense. But I wanted more. So I came to this point in my life where I wanted more. I was not trying to live like everybody else. And I started using this hashtag and I started saying this phrase, defeat average.
Which you have been doing.
Right. Well, I try. And then I started taking the mortgage business seriously. And I was like, well, I'm going to be not your average lender, and I'm going to defeat average in real estate on a daily basis by adding value to consumers and real estate professionals.
So what do you think's been lacking in the mortgage aspect of?
So much. So much. I mean,
talk about it.
So communication, actual knowledge of guidelines, loan officers, there's a lot going on when you put together a mortgage. So for the people listening that maybe aren't in the real estate industry and don't understand that in full, or the people that are in the real estate industry and just don't know what it entails to put together a file or a mortgage, there's so many moving parts. There's so many parties. And loan officers, they're people that aren't the best at putting together files. They aren't the best at dealing with multiple parties. They aren't the best at communication, dealing with clients. There's so many things that can go wrong in a transaction. So it's very easy to fall into that as a loan officer.
What's an example of something that could go wrong?
A mortgage specifically, a loan officer can calculate income incorrectly on a pre-approval. It goes into contract, gets put in front of an actual underwriter, and then gets denied. So you have a deal go into contract and get denied. So again, it's very easy to fall into being average as a loan officer, right? Not holding yourself to a standard or holding yourself accountable. So I would say the main things that come to my mind as far as defeating average in the mortgage industry is just overall giving value.
Of course.
Right. So and that's something that you really grasped early on. And that's why my mission statement is removing average by adding value to consumers and real estate professionals.
Of course.
So that's where it all starts for me. Adding value could be better communication. It could be better content, educational stuff. It could be the things that I do for my referral partners behind the scenes that help them grow their business and become more successful. There's so many different facets to what we do, but that's at the very, very center of everything, is just delivering value to everybody that I come across.
So that's a good point regarding adding value, because it's 2021. We're in the first month. I'm sure there's a lot of people, being that interest rates are so low right now, that their goal for this year is to become a homeowner. What are their first steps?
The first step is reach out to a loan officer, hopefully me.
Not your average lender.
So, and there's a reason behind that. And everybody will tell you the first step of the home buying process is to get pre-approved. If you Google it right now, first step of the home buying process, it'll probably come up as first step, get pre-approved. Not everybody will explain to you why. So I always like to explain to clients why the the pre-approval is the first step. Number one, you want to make sure that you qualify before you look at houses. That's the obvious, right? So you got to tie your shoes before you run, so to speak. So before looking at houses, you want to make sure you can get a loan. So that's the first reason. Second reason is everybody that's involved in the transaction, specifically the real estate agents on your side and the seller side, also want to know that you qualify for a loan before they show you their house, before you place an offer, especially a seller. Think of it like this: if you were to sell your house and somebody would offer you, let's say, $500,000 for it, you'd want to make sure that $500,000 they can actually get from a bank. So that pre-approval is going to show everybody that, and you're not going to be taken seriously until you have that pre-approval. The third reason, which everybody skips over, in my opinion, it's the most important, what I spend the most time on during the pre-approval process, and that is, you want to know financially what it entails to buy a house. So it's not just about getting a piece of paper. Everybody gets this wrong. It's not just about finding out that you qualify. What we do is we try and kill two birds with one stone. We want to make sure that you qualify, get you that piece of paper to show everybody and flaunt and put it offers in. But really what we want to dive deep on is, what are your financial goals? How much are you trying to spend per month? Because a lot of people start their home buying search, let's say online, and they sort from $550 to $450. But they don't know what the monthly payment consists of. So where did that number come from?
Right.
Exactly. And taxes play a huge role in your monthly payment. So it's not just $550, it's $550 with how much in taxes? How much are you putting down? What's your mortgage insurance? How much is your homeowner's insurance going to be? So all these things play a huge part, or should play a huge part, in how you search for a house. To give you more context. I'm
guessing, just to add on to what you were saying regarding maybe their credit score should be at a minimum of, what is it, 620 or higher?
So minimum credit score for conventional is 620. You can go actually below 600 for FHA loans. A lot of people will throw out there that you can go down to 580. You can go lower than that with compensating factors, meaning a larger down payment, lower debt to income ratios, reserves.
Sure.
So it's case by case FHA, but conventional loans, black and white, is 620 minimum. And there's obviously, now I'm speaking a little mortgage language. So I always try and kind of bring it down to everybody's level. FHA, there's two main types of loans that most people deal with. A third if you're a veteran, but the two main types are FHA and conventional. FHA loans are government loans. It stands for Federal Housing Administration, so it's a government loan. And conventional loans are backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is technically quasi-government. So Fannie Mae is publicly traded. It's a quasi-government. So it's under government control, but it's also traded in the stock market, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit, it's just in general terms. FHA is lenient on credit score. Conventional is a little bit more strict on debt to income ratios, a little bit more strict on down payment. So
now I've heard stories from real estate agents where this might have happened with one of your clients, or heard of something similar. They're under contract, they're going to close in a week or two, and they lease a car.
Yeah.
Or they start purchasing the furniture on their credit card.
Yeah.
Or things like that. So what's some advice, just once you get under contract, just don't do this, or do this instead, or what?
So I have a bunch of videos coming out soon that anybody listening to this that is gearing up to buy a house, I haven't even announced it yet. This is the first time I'm talking about it. So it's going to be called Mortgage Academy.
Okay.
It's going to be basically a Mortgage 101 series where you can learn the ins and outs of the home buying process.
A to Z.
Do's and don'ts, etc.
Sure.
So that's what made me think about it. But I'm putting together a bunch of those videos now. So the few things that come to mind is don't run your credit or open up any new debt. Reason being, if you run your credit, we're going to see it on your credit report, and they're going to ask you where that inquiry came from, and if you did open up a new trade line, or take out new debt. The reason you don't want to take out new debt is that new debt needs to be factored into your debt to income ratio, which can put you in a position where you no longer qualify for the loan. So don't go lease a Ferrari.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? And if you are, if like, let's say a lease is coming due, this is something that you should mention to your loan officer and something that a loan officer should see on your credit report, ideally. If I'm looking at a credit report and I see that a lease is coming due in 3 months and I'm issuing a pre-approval today, I'm telling you, listen, when this is due in 3 months, make sure your payment doesn't exceed X on your new car, because it's not like you can, take the bus.
Right.
You know, you give your car back, and so things sometimes you need to do, like lease a new car if your lease is expiring. But it's a conversation that you need to have, because a new payment means a new debt to income ratio.
Sure.
Another thing that I would strongly suggest is do not move any money around without first having that conversation with your loan officer. This includes don't deposit a ton of cash out of nowhere.
Is there a certain limit? What is it? 10,000?
No. Well, that's for money laundering purposes with your bank that you deposit the money with. So anything above $10,000 or above, you need to write out where it came from. So we don't get involved with that. Mm-hmm. But if an underwriter sees that you deposit a bunch of cash, every single dollar that is used in a real estate transaction needs to be sourced and seasoned. So you can't use cash to put down on a house. You can't use cash to pay your closing costs. It needs to be there needs to be a paper trail behind it. And they also do that to prevent money laundering. This is the bank's way of making sure that drug dealers and terrorists and not so great people buy houses. Mm-hmm. They want to cut that out, obviously. So again, so if you have a bunch of cash, don't just go deposit that in your account. Another example that we always get is, let's say you have a ton of bank accounts. Let's say you have A, B, C, D, and your money's coming from A, but you moved it from B to C to D back to A. Not that we can't use that money now, but you're going to have a very stressful time chasing down bank statements from every single bank and then showing that the money went through to the other bank. It causes a lot of unneeded stress. Sure. So that's why I say keep all the money where it is. If you need to move something, if you need to write a check, if you have cash, make sure you bring that up to your loan officer. So
to summarize the home buying process about getting approved, it's absolutely crucial to sit down with the mortgage broker to go over all these things. So, the reason being, until you have that conversation and go over that information, what are you shopping for? Right. You're shopping for, a number of bedrooms, an area, a price range, but all of that stuff is made up until you know the numbers, which for most first-time home buyers, the monthly payment is the thing that you should be thinking about the most. Of course. And that's why people end up in bad positions. They bite off a lot more than they can chew because they weren't explained to it ahead of time and they just fell in love with a house and they needed to do it. It's not like getting a car with a higher payment than you were expecting for. It's getting a house with a 30-year mortgage. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. So preparing, and it also gives you, if you reach out to a loan officer ahead of time, before you really get serious about going out there, before you look at houses, then it gives you a position to better prepare. So for instance, let's say if you have a 660 credit score and you sit down with me 6 months before you're looking to buy, and I teach you and coach you how to bring your credit score up to 720, so that you can take advantage of a 5% down conventional loan versus an FHA loan. So there's a lot of benefits to having that conversation sooner than later. Sure. Now, you had mentioned defeating average, which you're clearly doing. There's another I guess you could say keyword that you've definitely embraced, which is real partnerships. Mm-hmm. I definitely consider you one of my real partners, one of my friends. I agree. I agree with that statement. So, for people who don't know, I mean, whether you're coming to the dinners that I'm hosting every month, and now you're on my podcast show, coming to the workshops, which I think is a great idea. So for people who don't know, once a month, I host workshops for real estate agents, and thanks to Beth Lowe, she allows me to use her listing, which is a vacant property, and we go through top to bottom, inside and out, and I point things out from a home inspector's point of view, just to further educate the real estate agents when they're either going on a listing presentation or they're taking out buyers. But the good thing about having you there is that I don't know the guidelines from a bank standpoint, and so it's definitely great to have you there. So these realtors are literally getting information from every aspect of the home buying process. So I definitely thank you for that. And you definitely embrace, just the whole real partnerships, real connections. And I feel like when you're working with friends, it's just that much better when we're all striving to better each other.
We all have the same goal in sight. And what real partnerships is all about is I came into the industry young and I saw all of these older loan officers or the older generation. There was no, all the value was going one way and nothing was being returned. And it didn't sit right with me. Maybe it's my pride that I don't want to just chase realtors for business like a lot of loan officers will do. There's coaching programs for loan officers that tell you to cold call every Monday. So cold call real estate agents that you've never spoke to and ask them for business. In my head, why would they send me business? Right? So mine is always value first, right? So all my relationships are value first. You don't see many loan officers partnering up with house inspectors, but I feel that I can add a unique thing to what you're doing, and I also feel
you have been.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I feel like we're better together. That's what real partnerships is about. It's no longer a one-way street, right? A lot of business relationships in general, let's take real estate out of the equation. A lot of business relationships in general, it's a one-way street. I was on Dean Miller's podcast and we use this example, right? So let's say you're a restaurant owner and you have a liquor supplier, right? Most of the time that's 99% of the time that's a one-way street, right? So who's winning? The liquor supplier is, and the bar guy is obviously he's making profit off the liquors he's buying, but he's paying the liquor supplier nonstop, right?
But the liquor supplier is not bringing clients to the restaurant.
Correct. Well, and then also you can turn it around. You can turn it around even further and say, if I'm the restaurant owner, what can I do for the liquor supplier? Right. So in that position, you'll be surprised all of a sudden if you start taking that mindset. It was like a paradigm shift for me. Really, it was like, let me just help everybody and watch what happens.
I got that from Charles, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's a perfect example, right? So he's a busy fix and flip investor, right? He doesn't need to take the time to sit down on a podcast. He doesn't need, and obviously, what he gets out of it is he gets more eyes, more awareness, and drives more traffic to what he's doing. But you're also getting crazy value as well, because now his audience is chiming in. So it's this just concept of like almost selflessly building relationships and not looking for the angle.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I feel like for me, within the last, I'd say, year and a half, I've definitely hit multiple milestones, whether they're big or small. I hit my 100th home inspection in the midst of COVID. You were there at my 100th dinner that I had.
I felt like a proud parent. No, seriously, like what you're doing on a daily basis, it's something that everybody can look up to, no matter where you're at in your business. No matter if you're uber successful, you can look at Mike Totino's Instagram and be like, crap, I'm not doing enough. Well, and look at you now, starting a podcast. Like, you're constantly putting more on your plate. It's that 10x mentality, right? So just take on more, say yes to everything, take on more, and then new problems will happen.
Absolutely.
Right? You'll start to double book. You'll start to, but that's when growth is about to happen.
Of course.
And Grant talks about that all the time in his books. And as you probably know, I'm a big fan of Grant. Everybody watches his Instagram. But if you actually consume his like training material, his books, his podcast, his talks like that, you'll see him in a lot different light. And he always talks about like, say yes to everything. Yeah. Every meeting, every podcast, every chance to shoot a video. What's going to happen after that is you're going to double book your schedule. You're going to, but that's a good problem to have, because that's when you're about to break through that wall. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like every entrepreneur at one point, I know I've definitely encountered this, where at one point the phone was not ringing, you weren't getting deals, or you might have got that one lead in the beginning and it fell through. So at this point, when I'm still working till 9 o'clock at night, now mind you, my day starts at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's not what I do.
So when I'm still working at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, on top of that, learning Spanish because that's what I've been doing too. When I'm overwhelmed, I remind myself like there was a time where I would have killed to have this kind of problem, and now I have it. So I always embrace it, and just speaking about milestones and things like that. I believe a few months ago, back in 2020, you had reached a personal milestone. You posted something regarding sobriety. So how long? What was that?
It's 5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah. So 5 years sober. That means yes.
Congratulations, by the way. Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
That means no alcohol, no mind or mood altering
Nothing.
substances, nothing. So when I say sober, I mean completely sober. And for me, sober means so much more than just staying away from and abstinent from substances. It's about what you're talking about, getting 1% better every single day. I actually started reading, and I think you might have recommended this to me, Atomic Habits. Did you recommend that to me?
No, but you're reading another book the David Goggins book.
Yeah, that thing is sick.
Yeah.
You got to read that book.
I read it already.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
So you embrace that a lot more than I do. That's a whole nother level of
challenge.
hurt.
Yeah. It's just pain.
So, and he's insane.
Nuts.
But Atomic Habits, it talks about how if you get 1% better every single day at the end of the year, so in 365 days, you'll be 36 times better than what you are. He also says, I don't know if it's his quote, but he quotes it. He said, habits are the combined compounding interest of self-development. So like, I forgot what we were saying, but
about your milestone.
Sobriety. So again, it's not just, I don't want to make it seem like I'm a disciplined person that like just stays away from alcohol and other substances on a daily basis. That's not what sober is about for me.
Right.
Like
I didn't know that.
Sober about like I don't wake up like today. I'm not fighting anymore.
Right.
It's about freedom and getting better every single day in all of the areas of my life. Because when I got sober, I afforded myself that ability. Right. Before I was sober, when I was in active addiction, so I'm not just sober just because I felt like getting sober, right? So there was obviously a problem before that. Before I got sober, I was chained to these substances and a slave to them. So now you take that out of the picture. I got a lot of growing to do spiritually, and that's what I was talking about when I started the Defeat Average movement. That's what I was going through. I had a lot of growing to do, and when you grow, you go through growing pains, but because I'm free today, I have the ability to sit down with you on a podcast. I have the ability to try and wake up earlier. I have the ability to learn Spanish. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what it means to me. So yes, thank you for congratulating me. I appreciate it. Of course,
yeah. For me, that's an extremely touchy topic, and not that I've had any of those experiences, right? But as of recently, maybe 2 years ago, I lost a very close friend of mine, which I think you know him, Zach Stone. Yeah, and that's someone that I've known for probably 15 years. But he was a good friend of mine, and
we all know somebody. Yeah, we all know somebody.
And I feel like there's a misleading message with people that are battling the disease of addiction, where they think of someone that's on the street stealing and trying to, but these are working people.
Some of them are on the street stealing.
No, they definitely are. But
the motives, it's not just because they're not inherently bad people.
Correct.
They weren't born with a drug habit. Yeah. And not to put them in a victim category as well, but they are suffering from a disease. Yes. In 1974, I think, in the 70s sometime, the American Association for Health classified addiction as a disease. It's not a theory anymore. It's addicts suffer from a mental illness. Right. Again, not to put them in a victim, because I never wanted to be looked at as like, as somebody like a cancer patient. Yeah. I don't want to be compared to, any other disease. but there is something that drives that. So they're not inherently bad. They're you know, they're good people going through something bad.
There was an example once that I heard years ago that really put it into perspective, where let's just say two people smoke the same joint for the first time. One person, their brain tells them, you know what, we tried it, it wasn't for me, just I didn't like it.
Right. Or I liked it and I didn't go crazy with it. Yeah.
But then there's the other person that takes the hit of the same joint and says, we need that again.
Yeah, that was me. So the first time I smoked, and I'm an open book, so the first time I smoked weed, I literally said out loud to all the friends that I was with, I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be a grandpa that smokes with his grandchildren. Yeah. That's literally almost word for word. Like something set off. That's what makes me an addict. So when I put something into my body, when I put a substance into my body, I lose control. That's one of the things that classifies me as different. Right. Another example, somebody can go out, have a glass of wine with dinner, or drink once a week, or even if it's every day, that doesn't necessarily mean you're an alcoholic or an addict, but like I don't have an off switch. Right. So when I flip that switch on, it's broken in that position. Until something happens out of my control. Whether that be rehab, legal consequences, parents, anything that like
it's not in your favor.
Stops me in my tracks. And then there's still work to do after that, because the other thing that classifies me as an addict is I have this mental obsession when I'm in active addiction, not anymore. But if I do get put in a room like this and locked, and somebody throws away the key and there's no substances in here, I won't stop thinking about it. And that's a scary, scary place to be. So, for the people out there that I used to get it all the time, why don't you just stop? Right? And every single day, this is what people don't realize, every single day I wanted to stop. But I would wake up with that mental obsession. It's like when you have it's worse than having a sweet tooth or hunger or a craving for something, chocolate. It's 10 times worse than that. But that's the only thing that comes to mind with comparing it to. But yeah.
Now, someone who wants to seek, help and guidance, I'm sure there's groups and things like that. Is there any place in particular you can recommend that?
So I can't say that I'm a member of any organization. However, there are 12-step fellowships. It's anonymous, so I can't confirm nor deny that I'm a member there. But
I didn't know how it works. No,
and I'm just saying that as a joke. I'll tell you right now, the best place that you can go is a meeting.
I'm sure they're everywhere too. Yeah,
Google it. They're you can put blase blah meeting in
whatever town,
Elmore, or wherever it is, and there will be a meeting. The other thing I always recommend, and what helped me, is like reaching out to somebody that has been through a similar experience, because they'll guide you to their favorite meeting, or they'll help you get into this place and get this help. So if you know somebody, and I can be, if you are suffering from anything like that, and you are listening to this podcast, you can reach out to me too.
Awesome.
I'm supposed to be there today. That's my job.
Of course.
Whenever a hand comes out, I'm supposed to be there.
And speaking of people reaching out, I think this happened, I think it happened maybe a year or two ago, where someone had reached out to you, and I think you flew out somewhere to do some type of conference or a social media. Can you do some type of training or?
So, I spoke in Nashville, Boston, Miami. Those are the only cities outside of New York that I've spoke at. That's not about recovery. That's about social media and like Nashville and Miami were loan officer events. Boston was just a social media event, or a business event rather. Bunch of like-minded entrepreneurs in one room for like a conference. So I spoke at that was called HustleCon, and then Nashville and Miami were like loan officer masterminds.
So you were giving tips on branding and things like that.
Yeah, just my story. Just my experience with building a business through social media, marketing in general, strategies, that idea of real partnerships, like let's actually flip the script and focus on everybody else and what amazing things will happen. That's Gary V's whole thing is jab, jab, right hook, you know? So it's give, then ask. And that's those are some of the things that I talk about. Yeah. So
what's the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan for Not Your Average Lender?
It's so just in general, I won't put a time on it, because it really depends on market conditions and what happens with my business internally. And obviously I have goals and things that I have targets that I set, but, just in general, it would be to help more families on a yearly basis personally. I've recently just built out my support staff, so we're able to handle a decent amount more volume. I have, a loan partner, my sole processor, looking to get a marketing coordinator, looking to get another loan partner, maybe another processor, and just keep building like that. Because the thing is, as you do more units, you don't want your customer service to drop as well. A lot of loan officers
that's going to be my issue soon. Yeah.
And again, that's a good good problem, right? And that's why I put in place those 2 positions. Is I was like, all right, I'm not getting back to people as quickly as I used to. Let's start implementing some stuff. So again, it would just be to help more people. I'm trying to help 180 people in 2021.
Wow.
So that would be 15 families per month about. That's my personal production. That's one part of my goal. The other part of my goal, and let's say a little bit longer out as far as a calendar, would be to build a national division of loan officers that are like-minded, want to take advantage of our system, and just build a culture that is all about helping people. And my thing is, the mortgage industry has done so much for me, right? I didn't think I would, I thought it would be a career where I can make a good living, but it's done way more than that. I've realized with reflecting, like, not only have I make a good living, I have a good career, but I also get to do stuff like this. So if I can help another loan officer get to that point, or just put them in a position where whatever they're doing is now exponentially better, or they're able to scale, or whatever it is for them, I kind of owe the industry that. So my 5-year plan, maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's two years from now, but just to use your words, a 5-year plan would be to build a national division across the country of loan officers.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point, because I 100% feel the same way regarding my business, because there's been multiple times where people have congratulated me on, just watching my story in such a short span of time. But I immediately say it's because of you guys.
Right.
It's because of realtors, mortgage brokers, that, people that trust me. So I can't take the credit for what I've built up to this point, because, so with our workshops, what's some advice you would give to new real estate agents? Because the people who attend, they're mostly new agents, so they want to know the ins and outs. But a new realtor watching this episode right now, what advice would you give to them? Whether, let's say, someone reached out to them and say, "Listen, I'm looking to buy a house," or any type of advice.
So I would say, for a newer agent, continue to put yourself in environments that force you to grow, right? So you need to, the power of association is incredible.
Of course.
It changed my life with everything we just talked about, with business, with spirituality. You get around people with what you want, and you'll have what they have.
And that leads up to, that's perfect answer, because that leads up to my next question.
Go ahead.
When is Brewery 4?
So Brewery 4.
What is
Brewery?
Yeah.
So brewery. So a lot of people, when it's an audio thing, I have to kind of spell it out. So it's BREW-RE, and the RE stands for real estate, but it sounds like a brewery where
drink beer
is made. So the idea of brewery, it was supposed to be a quarterly networking event. When I say supposed to be, I mean before COVID.
Sure.
Where we would pick a location every single quarter. It would usually be a brewery. And we get together. It's free drinks. It's again, my whole business has changed with the power of association. So I wanted to be able to create an environment for other people to build relationships. And it's,
I know I have.
Yeah. I mean, you were at the last event. Everybody that goes to them, everybody that has been to an event so far, and we've had 3, they always come back for the, so it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I want that to be national one day, open up multiple chapters.
Of course.
But the idea on a micro level is to meet people like Mike.
And yourself.
Yeah, well, mostly Mike. So yeah, that's, I think Brewery 4. I don't know when or where because of COVID.
Yeah,
I'm trying to wait because cases have spiked. I mean, last event we gave out masks, we took temperature, we put sanitizer all over the place. Sure. Obviously, if you're afraid of COVID, you probably wouldn't have showed up to that event. And I completely respect that. That's everybody's personal choice. I don't advise go hugging a bunch of random strangers, right? And that's kind of what happens at networking events. You shake hands with a bunch of people, you pass business cards. So I was like, you know what? Let me just wait till more news comes out, this vaccine rolls out, and stuff kind of dies down and goes back to normal. I don't know when that's going to be though.
Well, definitely keep me posted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before Brewery 4, next month, February, we have our 5th, this is number 5 now, I think, workshop number 5.
Awesome.
So that's something that you and I will plan in advance, and then, we'll have the realtors back at the property. And so for those watching, how can people get a hold of you? How do they connect with you, follow you?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me would be my Instagram. It would be Not Your Average Lender, all spelled out. And you can always give me a call or text me at 516-265-4244. So any real estate related mortgage questions, you're a realtor that wants to take your business to the next level, you're somebody who's looking to buy a house, looking to refinance, thinking about anything, give me a call or just shoot me a DM.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.